Alright, the real video. The philosophy of the Anaku. Who are the Anaku? Well, the Anaku are the first beings of the world, remember? Discovered by the discovered by the Titans after they were traversing the universe, and they found this place, which is now called the Realm of Life, which doesn't make much sense, but that's what they call it. It's where the planet Yuandra sits. It's where everything happens in the book. Happens. I've talked about this before in the Chains of Time video and in the other ones, in the video of the creation of the lands and their stories and all that stuff. All of that stuff. We've talked about it. Now, as I've said many times before, the Anaku, after being created by the Titans, were given a world to live on, given a place to inhabit. We're not going to really go into the actual ideas of the Titans until it becomes relevant, because remember, as I said, that the Titans use them as a farming process. It wasn't some sort of... They weren't giving them life because it was a good thing to do. Now, talking about that, the Anaku lived their lives, and in time they would live side by side with the people called the Dizarine, the Forsaken Ones, whatever their original name was, I do not know. And they flourish in the world. There was a divide between the Dizarine and the Anaku people. Now the Dizarine would say, whether this is accurate or not, I do not know, that the Anaku were like a lesser people. They were kind of grubbier, they were dirtier, they were more warlike, they were more fearful and stuff. Does it have something to do with the Titans and what they imbued in them? It could possibly be. Now, when one imagines their gods, this is kind of the fundamental difference between Aeonic people and Anaku. The Anaku, if you really look at it, are the ones who fear their gods. The Aeonic do not fear their gods. It's just you don't see that. I mean, you look at any Aeonic race, you don't really see a fear of the gods. You see a reverence. You even see people not even paying attention to them. When you look at the Anaku, there is a fear. Now, that instilling of fear is some sort of catalyst to the machine on the behalf of the Titans. It's just something imbued in them to grease the wheels, to kind of make sure that the machine works as it should. You'll see it in real life culture all the time. I mean, look around you. It's pretty easy to see it. That is the basis for the machine that is the Anaku consciousness. Now, their consciousness works a lot differently than the consciousness of mankind. We use words like collective consciousness with mankind, and we use the idea of the people are a force and stuff. And then that's just within mankind, but within other Aeonic races, there is this idea that there is a unifying consciousness, though it is to be tapped into, and through that they use tools of emotion. That's where you see calibrated control and stuff like that. With the Anaku, there is an imbued kind of, I wouldn't even call it a hive mind, but at one point it was similar to that. Modern Anaku, you do not really see that so much in, because of the dissonance and because of the fade. It seems to be they're kind of all growing apart. Anaku were all gifted with this unified sight, if you will. Again, you don't see that now, but you did in the past, and now it's falling apart. So with these Anaku people fearing the Titans, or whatever the name that was that they gave them, I think the Quilcians, or there was something else, the Alakir or something, I think, I don't remember. I think it might have been the Alakir and the Quilcians were the two groups of Titans. They just happen to be called Titans, right? Now, the Anaku were, I don't know if I should say subjugated, but they were subjects of the Titans. Where you see more, again, is the Aeons are the opposite of that. They are beings under the Aeon, but they aren't subjects to the Aeon. The Aeon imbued the Aeonic people with powers and with magic and all that. They didn't, except for maybe Aik Beelbach, the Aeons and the Aeonic people have something called free will. Now, determinization and free will. So there was a video that I did. I don't even know if I should link it. It would be the first time I've ever done that because I don't even know. But it's essentially, I'll try it. I'll throw it down. And that is the working concepts between the Anaku and the Aeonic. This might be the stupidest fucking thing that I'm about to do, but I'm going to try it. Oh jeez, I have a lot of things that I need to check out. That's Kevin's stuff. Fuck! Motherfucker! Because I know I made an article about it. I have so much shit, man. You're like, oh, I want to go higher than Tolkien did. When you try that shit, it gets maddening. There's so much to be done. There's so much shit. You end up writing so much stuff, it's impossible to keep track of it all. I am not even kidding you. I myself just get totally lost in this guy's book. I won't dwell much longer on this because I don't know where it would be. But determinization versus free will and all that. That's the study of mankind, the Aeonic people, I should say, and the Anaku people. The Anaku people's lives have been determined from the beginning by the Titans. The Aeons did determine the outcome of the Aeonic people, but they eventually kind of went away from it, and then we saw free will kind of go on. You know, from now, it's their choice. We put them here, we made them, but from now on it is their choice. Whereas the Titans, we made them, they shall do what we are inevitably wanting them to do. So with that idea, life for the Anaku is determined. It is told. It is foretold. They are to do this. They are to do that. They only know this and they only know that. A simpler view, right? I think Jacob said it best. They are organic automatons. They are programmed to do, think, and feel what is designed to, I wouldn't say further their lives, but at least protect their lives in some sense. A defense mechanism, if you will. Yes, it is built into every living being, but you don't see it so much as a concept in the Aeons. You see it more in the Anaku people. Now, because of that, you are starting to see a free will kind of implement inside of it. From the influence of the Aeonic people onto the outcast Anaku and stuff, that right there is the catalyst of the issue of what created groups like the Serpentine Order. So the Serpentine Order was created because of this influence the Aeons were causing onto the Anaku. In their mind, they're the ones who cursed us, but now that their blasphemy and their, disturbing ways are wreaking havoc on what our people should not be. And so you start to see that as their doctrine. Remember that Quinlan, remember that Quartus and his mother, which I forgot her name, those are the highest people of the Serpentine Order. Quartus would eventually kind of move away from it, but that is the beginning of the end for the old ways. Now, the Anaku are more based on acting on their not like their prejudices, but the unified consciousness that is within them. They're more prevalent to unite because of that. That's why they could be seen as this hive, disastrous race that can wreak havoc on mankind. Whereas one Anaku would hate mankind, then almost all of them will as well. There's not a lot of give or take in that, where the Aeonic people have free will, so you can choose what you like or don't like. Again, you will see a separation from that later on throughout the history of the world because of the Fade. The exiled people are far more likely to not have this design hatred of mankind. It is those that are still within the forest. It is those that are still the elders of the Anaku ways. Now they pass down their kind of information much like an elder would. There's not a lot of written down things for the Anaku. They don't have a written culture. They have an oral tradition, right? So the elders that you would see in the year 1647 would happen to be probably 3 times removed descendants of the people that would have known Tanias, right? Because that would have been Tanias. What did I say? Tanias. Odysseus. That would have been the year 400. I mean, in the year 1647, I don't even know how many years that is, okay? But it's enough to say that there's, you know, the longer lives, well, they were immortal, but they weren't, not for much longer because of the fading process that is happening to them. I did have a video that I made about the half-breeds and how that worked. Gotta fucking put that in the thing now. But yeah, we can put that down there. Or however that works. And then, I don't know if you do it at the end of the video. Yeah, we'll do it at the end of the video. But you can kind of see that amongst these peoples. You do see, you do see that, right? So the biggest difference between them are the difference, like I said, between determinization and free will. Now, how they are viewing other kind of philosophies in life, well, there is the same kind of mentality that you would see probably amongst the Aeonic people, in some sense, like I was describing in the last video. That would be something like their philosophy of what is right and what is wrong and what is... Okay, so think of it like this. You're an Anaku. You were given this place. It was designed for you and you alone. You were given life. You were given every understanding that you could ever have because of these progenitors, these titans. I'm going on. Because I'm not even tired. I'm starting to yawn. When I start talking, I start wanting to yawn. Now, you're given these things. Everything is for you. You flourish. You live your life and everything is thought out for you. You live a life without free will. You know, you don't have to search for anything. You just got to live, you know? That's all you have to do. Live and worship. There is no finding self, finding truth, finding understanding. It is given. It is given by your progenitors. Why wouldn't you think that the world belongs to you? That the world is yours to keep? It was given to you first. Those people were fucking secondary. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, people of the Aeonic race is what I mean. They don't belong here. And look what happened to the first secondary people. You know, I would imagine that'd be a word they'd use, secondary people, and maybe their language. The first secondary people were the descendants. Damn it. They were the Dizarine. That turned out very bad. Those people almost destroyed the Anaku along with the Aeons. So there's a bit of bad blood between anyone that is not Anaku. So it's kind of like they're closing in around themselves, and the Anaku are what's right and everything else is wrong. We have to fix this problem. And from that kind of point of view, that mindset is where you see places like the Serpentine Order just kind of coming into fruition because of a Gun Fa-Chu, one of the members of the Fa-Chu tribes, who went over to Adrana to see what mankind was, to watch it grow and watch it happen, and was disgusted by the uniting of Aeonic people and Anaku. Because just remember, Aval, what would become Aval, the metropolis of Adrana, was a melting pot for a while. It was, I mean, not so much anymore, the closed borders thing, but at one point you'd see Aeonic people of all description. And people from across the waters, from other lands and stuff, and Anaku, all together. United by trade. There was a Gunfachi who saw that and saw it wasn't right, and so you have this Marxist kind of mentality, but opposite of it. You know what I mean? Like, he's the man that everyone builds to in communism, right? Like Marxism and all that stuff. A Gunfachi is of that level. I don't know what example else to give because I don't study this kind of stuff at all, politics or anything. That's not in my wheelhouse. But that right there, from his understanding, he brought back these teachings, these writings. No, he didn't. He didn't bring back writings. He orally talked, because there is no writing amongst Anaku's. And he held these lectures. He would go from forest to forest, preaching of this stuff, to eventually unite what would become the Serpentine Order, out of the ashes of his final death. Now, that is where the Serpentine was born. And the Serpentine's major goal is to put an end of aeonic interference, seeking to bring balance, to bring right back into the world. Let me see if there's anything I can read. Okay, so the Serpentine Order, based off of the philosophies of Gunfachu, were created. They were a uniting of all of the highest Anaku of every tribe. Whether that be like big ones, like the fucking clans, if you will, of Lyria and Atrovia, all the way down to the healers, the sages, and the philosophers of each individual forest. I think I made a video about where those forests may be. Maybe what I should do is kind of, you find that video or say something about it. Multiple forests within the world, I'll find the video and I'll put it here. Now the placement of the green areas are actually Anaku tribes. I was able to find all of the Anaku tribes that were ever mentioned. And I actually don't know right where they go, but I have general ideas. Like the Intox tribe in this forest, the Naho in this forest, the Vizian in that forest, the Fachu were the main ones in Trinity, the Rene, and then I think the Fang, how do you pronounce that? Octu? The Octu, O-C-T-E-U, Akatu. But anyway, now their goal to created by the High Order of Anaku, which is what we call the Council, the High Council, in order to solve the problem of fading. They have been taking the life force of human mages in order to prolong the fade enough, as well as many other heinous tests against mankind. In time, they saw there was a way to prolong life, and through that prolonging, it was vampiric. It would have had to have been to take life essence from mankind to synthetically put it in the Anaku people of choosing. Only a certain amount of people were allowed to have that. You'll start to see Cordis become different and more mad, not because of just Anvir, but also because he's no longer on that regimen. He's no longer being prolonged like he was before. So you'll see him start to fade, if you will. Now the Anaku and their the philosophy of them is just kind of in that way of just hyper focused. So you talk about the Serpentine Order and what they're trying to do. It's I always forget that fucking word. They're supremacists, let's be honest, but basically I'm trying to say it's a group that goes a little bit outside of like, whoa, geez, like that's a bit much right there. Like, you know, they're extremists. Fucking hey, that's the word. I'll always, like, when I describe a Serpentine, I'm like, they are something. I mean extremists. Now, the reasoning behind that is, as we've stated before, like with everything that led up to it, with that mindset, these people are only acting on their own self kind of preservation, right? But as we stated before, they act through their creators, which means that behind the curtain of the Serpentine Order lies the House of Life. The House of Life is what holds the head of the Serpentine Order, which is this Anaku woman. Which means she is in direct communication with one of the Titans, one of the last Titans. To me, the House of Life represents this old idea of what temples were supposed to be. Temples were supposed to be you were walking into the god. This is his body. Really old temples. I saw a video about it. It's really cool. You are entering into his body to activate the mind of God through ritual prayer and chanting and all that stuff. It's a invoking. It is this kind of understanding of you're turning him on. You're activating him. You are bringing him into this realm by summonings, right? That's what's kind of going on. The House of Life is the body of a Titan. What is meant to be the body of a Titan? This beast that is dead. This massive beast. These Anaku are within this, invoking his power, using this connection that they have, and they are trying to do, well, they're trying to get the information from him, right? From this, wherever he's at, but also what their next moves should be, right? So, Titans need power through worship. What better way to bring that about than a uniting of all Anaku? So that brings us to the Atrovians. The Atrovians are what we've always called the Empire. But they're not necessarily an empire that we would think, oh, like the British Empire, you know? It's more of an empire of mind. They are seeking to unite every Anaku under their folds. The flag of the Atrovians up here, which I'll show a close-up of, is, oh, fuck. On the top, it'll say the Guardians. Underneath that is each emblem of Anaku high culture. The ones from Trinity, the ones from the Three Rivers, the ones from the ones in the Valakmere, and then the other ones are from oh god, I don't even know. I think somewhere in Dubois. Those are the last high Anaku races, and obviously Lyria, but they're seeking to unite all of them under this banner to bring the worship back to the Titan that is long dead, bringing him back. He speaks to us from another realm. He is going to help us. With that help, the Anaku can rise again. And you'll see why it's a threat to Tantorum and all that stuff. So anything's really a threat to Tantorum, but that's where that's kind of going on. So keeping that in mind, they're acting through their God. Their God's acting through them. It can be argued much the same through, like mankind, the Forgotten King, acting through his people from time to time, choosing certain people to which he speaks. The most recent one being Eris. It can be one and the same. It's like, how different are they? How different is what the Anaku want and what the Aeons want? Oh god, this is tiring to do. Oh. But, you know, like, that's kind of what we're seeing amongst all of this. So, going forward, it's best to understand that Anaku are at the whim of the Titans. What remains of the Titans that vanished long ago. One that is still there in communication with the Serpentine Order. But through the Serpentine Order, they were created by the Anaku High Council. The Anaku High Council has a seat in Atrovia, and that seat in Atrovia seeks to bring in Lyria. So you're starting to see things happen with Lyria. But at the same time, they are sending out emissaries to all of the Anaku races, to the exiles, and they're seeking to bring back the feral. For whatever purpose that is, it's unknown. But the Anaku right now are having a push in concepts of like a united Anaku people. And that's kind of what you're seeing in the 1640s. There's a rise in Anaku power. There's a rise in what they're doing. And you look in Lyria, and you're starting to see the crumbling of the Lyrian ways, the falling of the merchant types. You're kind of watching the ebb and flow of like conservatives and whatever the opposite of that is, libertarians, I think. That's a big struggle that's happening in Lyria right now. It's like there are those who seek to unite themselves under a new banner of Anaku and just learn to flourish with the Ions and intermingle with them. Through bringing prolonged life might mean folding what we once were and becoming something new. Like they're seeking to do something different. But then you have the Ebi of the Anaku in Lyria who are seeking to go back to the old ways, like pure Anakuism. Like, we don't want to mix with any races. We don't want any races to be on the same terms as us. We are better than them. And so you're seeing that happen. And that's just in Lyria alone. And this is affecting the crown. The crown himself is losing favor, and eventually like this like supremacy group is taking over. I mean, you think 1930s Germany, that's kind of happening right now in Lyria. The democracy is kind of crumbling to authoritarianism. Now, and again, that's Lyria, and behind that is Etrovia, which sounds like they're natural allies, but the crown of Lyria does not like the council of the Etrovians. But the council of Etrovians are helping that influence of turning Lyria over to what they need to be, so when it becomes part of the Anaku Empire, only then can they gather up more of all the other Anaku. Bring the elders of this force, you know, when America goes into, you know, Afghanistan, or when they go into whatever the fuck else they were, and they go to these tribal leaders of these hamlets and shit and just talk to them like, but we're the good guys and we're doing this and we're doing that. That's kind of what they're doing. But it's almost like, I wouldn't call it Inquisition. But it might be, you're starting to see that happen amongst the Anaku people. So, I mean, in the story, for instance, that's why Tantorum's uneasy about movement of Anaku peoples, and they send soldiers up in the mountains, because something's going on in their mind. They don't know there's a giant movement happening. So, to bring it and put it shortly, the philosophy of Anaku people is to survive. It is to grow, it is to flourish. Now, you'll see a divide between whether that's kind of succumbing to the changing world and becoming part of it, or bringing it back to the way it should be. Like, these concepts are what the Anaku battle with. As for the tribes, each individual tribe, it depends. Some Anaku tribes, like maybe the ones up in Albadan area, known as Three Rivers, maybe they're seeking to just isolate. And just, you know, when you aren't brought forth information to the level that an Etrovian high counselor would, you don't know the ins and outs of everything happening. You don't know that there is an outcome. Perhaps some of the Anaku in those forests are like, you know, they don't know that there might be a fading outcome, so they're just like, if we just stay, you know, here, they'll leave us alone, and no one will bother us. Like, there might be some of those, like isolationists. You might also see some Anaku who seek to, within their forest, attack outward. This guerrilla warfare that they wage on their people, much like you probably see in Dubois, where they're just kind of, every once in a while, like, they're doing raids for supplies and stuff like that. Now, why don't they burn the forest down? The Dubois people, it's another story. But I'm sure, like, they're all different. They all have different outcomes, and it's called the uniting of a mind. That uniting of a mind is strength. The fractal kind of thing that happened between the consciousness of Anaku is totally affecting the overall happenings of what will happen to the Anaku. So in some senses, you look at the Serpentine Order and you say, well, like, shit, like, they're not really doing anything horrible. Like, they're getting back what's theirs. This is right. This is good. They were subjugated for years. They were, they were the people that were cast down. They were lesser. Like, you see in the modern era with, like, the us building up weird cultures and stuff. That is definitely, like, the same thing, like the gay culture, I guess you could say. I kind of mirror that in my mind to how I look at it. Like, we lived our lives the way we thought was right, and we were told it was bad, but finally we don't think it's bad because no one's saying it's bad anymore. Now we got to push it around to create a new consciousness concept of what it is. That's what you're seeing with the Anaku people. That's why it truly matters their outcome. Now, I'm not saying that in my mind the Anaku represent like the gay culture now, but you could see a parallel to it, or like the Black Lives Matter movement. You could see these parallels to the good intention, but the misguided ways in which to pursue it. Fear-driven. Driven by fear. Now, and that same fear driven by the head of the movement can be used against those of which he serves. And again, the modern day, what I see represented, how I'm looking at it, I can draw parallels to that to the Anaku. So, can you say the Anaku are evil? Can you say that they're good guys? It really depends. It really depends. I don't even know. I just know that they are, that we, me, Kevin, and Jacob gave them as much autonomy in their minds and the way that they view the world enough to say, do they deserve the fate that they have, or do they deserve to fight back? Any argument is correct. You know what I mean? If you're like, well, fucking the Anaku should be the only race, and they should be the ones that win, like, you are correct. If you say that they're the weak ones, and if they don't absolve, then they will perish, I'm like, yes, that is also correct. Like, there is no right or wrong. The whole premise of this book is there is no good and evil. It's just a shade of gray. That's the entire book. Like, there are evil acts and there are good acts. That does exist in the book and in real life. My concept was to explore that blend part. If evil's here and good is here, you know how, like, really dark, and then, like, you trail it this way and it gets weaker and this gets darker? That's what I'm exploring. How does one get from here to there? What are the steps that it takes? And the Anaku people are merely victims of circumstance, And it's true. It sounds like a joke, but it really is true. Like, this is theirs. But what does that even mean? The study of the Anaku mind, I'm sure there were scholars amongst the Anaku who really debated, what does it mean that this is ours? That we lived here before, that the Titans changed this, and now it belongs to us? But it was always us. And it still is. What does change truly mean? What does it mean to be one thing and now another? Does that mean you're not yourself anymore? Well, it does if you have a hive mind. A hive mind needs the same kind of basis of people. The basis of people that the hive mind is within all have to be the same. Like, bees all look the same. The hive mind works. But individuality is something that comes from aeonic understanding, or mankind. That right there is, you see the giant difference of, like, a white person and a black person. Look at, like, two different white people. They don't even look the same. Look at someone from China and look at someone from Japan. Like, so different. So different. You'd have to kind of know, but there's a big difference. You don't see that in Anaku people. You know, like at least for a long time, you're starting to see it more and more because something's changing within their physiological culture. But from that's unexplainable as to why that's happening. But the point I want to drive is, determinization, hive mind, needs single mind. It needs a hive mind. It needs a higher mind. So in that, of course, individualization is not work. Of course, in the extremists of the Anaku, someone like Lyria saying like, hey man, we can just trade with them, we can have sex with them, like that doesn't work. Because that breaks them from their creator. These serpentine type, or any other extremist people, like the Abbey is another one in Lyria, they aren't so much as evil as they are trying to hold on to the Anaku ways that if we are not united, and if we are not the same, then we can no longer speak to our creator. I'm sure that there are other Anaku that say, they're not our creators. They just gave us a fucking vehicle. We were already here. They didn't make us. They're our progenitors, perhaps, but they didn't make us. Something else did. The real creator. That's probably an argument going on in the Anaku culture, which you can begin to see the break of philosophies. You can begin to see why certain Anaku are changing as opposed to others. Why more exiles are happening. Why more Anaku are becoming, like half-breeds. They're intermingling with other ones. You're starting to see that's probably the main reason why. But that's that. That is the philosophy of the Anaku. And I have to edit this now because there's a couple things I mentioned that I'll do. But that's it. Your grandma said hi, by the way.